Hi everyone, it's Monday, so we're going to do Megan's Monday market update. And today we're going to do a quick overview of the market with Matt Stancato here from Guild Mortgage Lending. And then we're going to go into some nitty-gritty details around investing and specifically how can you leverage your VA loan in order to get in the door on an investment property. So Matt, anything new that we should know about on the market as of today?
Well, there's a couple exciting things happening. The first of them is that we got news over the last week that home sales for November and October were up 2.2% year over year from last year. Doesn't sound like a lot, represents a ton, especially during a softer time of the year traditionally. So that was great news. And in rate news, there were some important technical barriers that were broken both by the 10-year Treasury and by the yield on the 30-year. So 10-year mortgage-backed security and the yield on the 30-year. So both those things point to a very favorable rate environment come spring.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I know before we kind of got this video started, we were also talking about just the market as a whole and specifically unemployment, how those numbers are kind of being reported, if they're really being reported as accurately as we anticipate, because I suggested that I don't think that unemployment is taken into consideration. A lot of companies that are putting people on part-time employment, reducing hours, but still holding those positions for their employees. So what do you think? Do you think that the numbers are skewed a little bit? You think the Fed is saying that the unemployment rate is higher than it or lower than it actually is?
Well, it's garbage in, garbage out. So it's whatever information is going into their systems and then their algorithms and their formulae, and whatever's coming out is what it is that it looks like to them. So you have to ask the macro question once you've made your analysis as to whether or not it makes sense, big picture. And when we have inflation slowly coming under control, we should correspondingly see unemployment ticking up. We haven't been seeing that. We've been seeing inflation coming under control, but somehow the job market's still running hot as well. And that shouldn't be happening. If we had erroneous numbers going into the calculations about unemployment, for example, the Washington Post, I think it was the Wall Street Journal, released an article last week. It was stating that as many as 22 to 26% of the jobs that are being reported as new jobs might be either duplicates or ghost jobs, which are being reported more than once. So all of that kind of fits. If the unemployment isn't being reflected properly, then a lot of things that have been previously confusing make more sense.
I would agree with that. I'm hearing a lot just from peers and other people in my network that their job is still secure. They're just not working as many hours. They're looking for secondary employment, things of that nature. Um, so I would agree. I don't think that those numbers are really being reported as well as they could have. But I am glad to hear that inflation is coming under control a little bit more, that hopefully we are setting ourselves up to have those rates start to come down, maybe even the end of 2025. I don't know that there's going to be a lot of significance happening in the next 6 months. That's just my personal opinion. I think they're going to try to really hone in and nail down this inflationary issue. And I think come the fall, we're going to see some more cuts personally. But that's just an opinion. Never know. Disclaimer is we just give our opinions here. Okay. We're not legal or experts, and we don't have a little golden ball or can't see into the future and see what's going to happen. So
And rates always go up faster than they come down. So
yes.
rates coming down is a long-term process. Rates going up can happen within days.
Yeah. Now, what I really wanted to talk about today was, like I had mentioned, VA financing.
Yeah.
And you specifically worked on my husband and I's VA financing when we decided to use that to purchase a multifamily.
Mhm.
Now, there's a lot of questions around using VA financing to do something like this. I think in general, when thinking about using this type of financing, you look for a single family home, first time home buyer. Tell me some myths about VA financing. For example, can you use it on multifamily? Can you not? And can you use it more than once?
The answer to both those is yes. A couple misconceptions about VA, and those are two excellent ones that you mentioned. Is that it's only for, well, certainly it is only for veterans. but that there's a limitation to what you would qualify for based upon your entitlement amount. Your entitlement amount might read only 36,000, but your entitlement amount is 36,000 or 1/4 of whatever loan amount you need, whichever one of those is higher. So that is what that means essentially is your VA entitled to whatever it is you want to borrow up to the VA loan amount maximum. The VA loan amount maximum matches the FHA maximum, which in Chester County is well above $600,000 at this point. So
Right.
it doesn't have to be inexpensive. It can be for a veteran who wants to buy the first house, a next house. It's not a first-time home buyer program. You can use it on multifamily properties, and that is an interesting way to get you to build some equity, build some long-term real estate wealth, and also be able to leverage the property itself for income. All of which we did when you bought yours.
That's right. So there are some stipulations and guidelines around using this type of financing, right? It's a little bit more specific on the lending with the inspections versus, let's say, a conventional financing. In our case, we own now a 2 unit that was on a very small lot. And at the time, the well and the septic system were fairly close. They were definitely close to each other proximity wise, which was a huge red flag on this property. And so that was one of the hurdles we had to jump through almost initially just to get this under contract and get it moving along. On my end, when I saw this property, I thought this has really great potential. I would love to live in 1 unit, rent out the other unit, kind of offset some of that mortgage, like many people do when they consider multi units as an owner occupant. But the listing, when I signed in, said, that they didn't accept VA or FHA financing. It was almost initially discredited. The listing agent didn't think that this property would work out because of the well and the septic, and she knew that. And was she wrong? No. However, I don't like to take no for an answer, and I certainly don't take the first no. So I proceeded to go down and contact the township and then the PA water supply to determine, is there public water anywhere nearby and how much would it cost to hook up? First disclaimer to that statement would be, I don't necessarily recommend that everyone do what I did. There's inherent risk involved because I put up money on the property prior to owning. So I think there's always risks involved when you decide to make a purchase, and everyone has a different risk tolerance that they feel comfortable with. My husband and I did feel comfortable with doing the water hookup, paying for it prior to owning. How does that affect the deal? Well, hypothetically, if the seller decided to back out or the transaction fell through, he would have gotten a water hookup to his house and we would have been out of house. So we would have had done all that work for nothing. But we worked with the seller in good faith. And tell me about how that was for you and Rose trying to work that out on your end.
Well, obviously, yes, the inspections, as you mentioned, are a little more strict for VA than for a conventional loan. They follow the FHA guidelines for the most part. And those guidelines do include some minimum distances for well and septic and all that. But one of the great things about VA is that unlike FHA, it does have a little bit of flexibility as far as, what's acceptable for guidelines. In this case, it wasn't a hard no. It was more like, all right, if we can prove that hooking up X to Y is more expensive than leaving X in place, then that's acceptable for us. So VA is designed to help veterans, and to that end, it allows some underwriter discretion as far as what's allowed and what's not. Now,
Yeah.
something else you mentioned was that you got a duplex and you were using the income from the other unit to offset your mortgage payment.
Mhm.
Absolutely fine. You can do VA financing. I'm trying to remember if you guys did 100% financing for that property.
We might have. I don't remember because this was about the second or third time we've used VA financing, which we'll kind of dive into that a little bit more. I think we did bring some to the table actually. So
Because I couldn't quite remember whether or not, because VA offers 100% financing for single family homes. I wasn't sure if that extended off the top of my head to 2 units. But in any event, you can still use higher than normal amount of financing that is a lower than normal down payment for multi-unit properties using VA.
Yeah, absolutely. And in this instance, we also got seller assist. Um, Other items that had come up on the inspection were things like repairing or replacing the deck that
Yep.
needed to be done. There were some foundational items that needed to be taken care of. Through negotiating with the listing agent, we were able to get the seller to actually pay a contractor that we know and trusted. And he came in and he was able to hurry up and do those repairs and make those exchanges. But I think the biggest hurdle being doing those repairs in conjunction with hooking up to public water, running those lines, doing all of that work. Let's get a timeline here. Usually you have a 30-day window for close, 30 to 45 days. And we had to extend closing at least once while we were working with PA Water, getting the
Once is
applications, getting the application in. And, we had to have inspections and people coming out. I had to get letters from the PA Water Company, supply them to you, proof that we were hooking it up. Like you said, for the underwriter to have that good faith of knowing that we are doing all the things that we could do to meet their requirements. So it was quite an adventure. It was a lot of paperwork, probably on your end, massive hurdles to jump through and headaches. Why am I talking about this though? I think part of why I really wanted to bring this up today was one, not every great opportunity is an easy slam dunk. A lot of times you have to do your own investigating. You have to connect yourself with somebody who really knows what they're doing. Because frankly, I could have gone to another lender. They would not have wanted to do all of the legwork that you did with getting the paperwork together. They probably would have said, this is not going to go. You should move on and find something else.
it's what's something that we do very well is just like you, we don't take the first no for an answer. We work with our underwriters to make deals work. We don't have an adversarial relationship. And I'll leave names out of it, but just yesterday we had a loan that did not meet the guidelines. And I went to our boss and said, if I get this, will you take this loan for 6 months and keep it on our books until we can get out of it? This person deserves their home. And he told me what he wanted from me and we made it happen. So there are things that we can do, especially with loans like VA, to assist the borrower.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think, I've worked with so many different people and heard stories from different people about that initial rejection, the move on and find something else. Um, Not every deal, like I said, is going to be this slam dunk scenario. You have to put in the legwork and sometimes you have to put in the elbow grease. Sometimes that looks like doing the actual repairs yourself. Sometimes that means putting forth that extra effort up front. I'm so glad that we did. That property ended up working out fantastic for us. We have great tenants there. It was totally worth all of the work. But I would say that there was about 6 months of recovery of just exhaustion that we had to work through
And,
after that.
and
So,
a couple of things to say about this. One, if you're moving in, getting VA, you're getting rent from the other side, that's offsetting part of your mortgage. Now, let's say
mhm,
you no longer want to live in a duplex anymore, you want to move forward to a single family home, you can leave the duplex and you can retain it as an investment property without compromising the mortgage that you have.
correct. Yes. And which is what we ultimately did. And so now both of those units are being rented, and it's been a good cash flow situation for us. Um,
So
at
we're
the
so we're in the long run for the hard work.
Yeah. I think also talking about all of that effort, all of that work in the middle of a market during COVID when prices were really high, when it's really hard to get concessions, when you're paying over for properties, when you're getting knocked out of deals. That was the environment at the time when we purchased this home. It was a huge reason that pushed us into wanting to do all of the work in the first place. So,
To that end as well. I mean, it's always free to talk to me. My opinion's not worth very much. So, but if you want to give a call, just because you have an idea, if you want to run some numbers by me, you want me to let you know whether or not this looks like a positive or a negative cash flow, I can do that. Megan can do that as well. Give
yes.
us a call, and we'll be happy to take you through whatever question it is you have that you want answered.
Absolutely, absolutely. So
I'm trying to remember as well because there was something beyond this. The well and septic was the big thing. Obviously, the termites required for everything. Was there knob and tube wiring?
No, the electrical was updated, thankfully. Such a nuance, actually, was that there was bamboo in the back of the yard
That's right.
that the appraiser called. And this bamboo was just nestled between the house and the road behind the house. And it wasn't a very large space, but the bamboo had grown taller than the two-story building itself. And
Okay.
one of the requirements was that we had to get rid of all of that bamboo, chop it down, haul it away. Do you know how many places will take bamboo and let you dispose of it?
Nuts.
Exactly. Exactly. The chopping it down was one thing in itself.
Do
The
you know?
hauling it away was another altogether.
Do you know any panda?
Huh?
Do you know any panda bears?
No,
It's
no panda bears. No, it wasn't even worth it. It wasn't worth it.
okay.
Just wasn't. We had to re-support and cut back the deck from the neighboring house because it was on our property line. So we had to have that conversation because the gentleman owned both properties.
It's overhanging the house. I can see why that like okay, so when you're in general, when you're looking at what kind of things get flagged by VA or by FHA, what you're looking for safety issues, right?
Mhm.
So you would think that something really ugly or make the house just unlivable. It's not always that stuff. It's surprisingly specific. Cracked windows, cracked and peeling lead-based paint if the house was made before built before 73. Um, Cracked concrete, you would sparking electric, anything that presents a present danger to somebody who is living there. And those are the things that have to get fixed. Otherwise, there's a lot that gets let go by FHA and VA these days that didn't before, and that leads to a lot of people saying things like you said that you saw on your listing, that we don't want government financing FHA or VA, and that's an old school way of looking at things. It doesn't really fit anymore.
The other item that was brought to our attention was the septic system, and the septic system initially failed, right? Because it wasn't working in an orderly manner. However, because we had hooked up the public water, the gentleman,
What it was actually doing.
yeah, with the gentleman who came out and serviced the septic system that was supposed to say it was in good working order said, "Hey, it doesn't work the way it's designed to. However, you can use this specific system as two holding tanks." And we're like, "Great." He's like, "So you're gonna have to pump it, but I can pass it as long as you use it as holding tanks." So that's what we did. And these are just, again, these are the nuances of jumping over things, having conversations with the gentleman on the other side who was doing the septic and saying, "Hey, we need to get this to pass. How do we get this to work? Because we're already hooking up to public water. We've already jumped through all these hoops. Please don't let me down here on the money we've already invested in this. How can we make this work?" And he goes, "Okay, as long as you agree to this is what we're going to do." He had to dig up the septic system because there wasn't a point of access. Had to do the work so that there was access in the future.
You guys had a lot. Walking away from this would have been very difficult. You guys had a lot of sunk in.
Oh my God. There was, once I was in the thick of it, I was in it. I was like, there is no going back. We are not turning away from this. I am fully committed.
We're going to
And
live here
I don't know what it
already.
is. I don't know what it is about somebody telling me no, but just hearing that initial no from the realtor of like, "No, it's not going to go VA." I'm like, "Well, I will decide that. Thank you very much. Let me make some phone calls."
That's what you want working for you.
Once I saw the glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel, I was like, "We're going to make it happen." And you and Rose felt the same way.
Yeah, we
So
we
many
look
phone calls about this deal
we
were
look at the
exchanged.
totality of the deal. Does this make sense? Do these folks uh, are they going to live there like they say? Are they going to rent the other side out? Is it a better situation now than they were in before? Does it make sense that they're moving on? And if all those answers are yes, then the rest is details. And what we try to do is make sure that everybody is as comfortable with the details as possible.
Right. And I say that and there were a lot of hoops to jump through, and Dom and I, our tolerance to want to do these things, want to put forth the effort, want to put forth the money was pretty high, right?
Yes.
Not everybody is comfortable with all of these items stacking up. One of those items alone would have deterred a lot of people from wanting to make the purchase, let alone cumulatively all of them. So my goal when I sit down with somebody who's looking to invest and get started in maybe a multi-unit or house hacking type of scenario is, let me figure out where your tolerance is for this. How comfortable are you? How handy are you? How willing are you to do certain items, areas, locations, all type? Like I want the whole picture. So
Yeah, there's ways to purchase investment properties that are extremely easy and smooth and don't require any work on your part at all. Sometimes the best opportunities do require the elbow grease, and we're here to help you, determine how that works. That's something for the last half of his life. My stepfather owned and managed property, and that was his job. And I was coming to him about trying to figure out how much money I would make on a particular flip after a particular time. And he just kind of looked at me and said, the longer you look at it over the broader amount of time, the more money you make.
mhm.
He's right. I mean, it might be unpleasant for those 6 months while you're scraping everything together, but once it's done and it's generating income month over month on the long timeline, uh, real estate, especially around here, is almost always a wonderful choice.
I don't want to overshadow the rewarding feeling you get from putting your time, your effort, your money into something too, because everyone who's ever played a sport or worked towards anything that was an accomplishment in their life, there's a sense of reward in actually doing the work. It's worth it in the end. I laugh with my husband all the time about, remember when we didn't have hot water? Remember when our pipes froze and we had heaters in the basement and we were wrapping pipes and had to get the boiler fixed, which all those things happened this week. So we can laugh about it and it's fun. And I think the journey should be fun because real estate in general is a long term investment. Yes, you can buy, you can flip and make some cash, but generally speaking, you gain your equity and you gain your income over holding it, like you said, over the next 10, 15 years.
And it was the way to
So,
build an generational wealth.
so you should enjoy it. Have fun with it. Laugh about it. It's the only thing you can do.
Yeah, you laugh during those first 6 months where there's no electricity. You're eating Chinese food on the floor. It's a lot of fun. So to tie everything up, that is only one way, of course, of getting yourself into an investment property. Everyone thinks that you have to have 20% down and you have to, have all this money in reserve and that you have to be prepared to do, all these things. And it's not necessarily true. There's many ways to skin a cat, many ways to get yourself into an investment property if you're willing to be flexible and do some hard work.
Couldn't have said it better. Thanks, Matt.